This will be a video response to Stigmatibus's video, otherwise known as the Stigmata, in his video titled Logical Questions for Atheists. Let's get this party started.
Atheists say atheism is an intellectual position. What reasons do you have for holding that position? Your reasons are based upon logic and/or evidence or lack of it. So is there any reason or evidence for you holding your position that you defend? If you say that atheism needs no evidence or reason, then you're holding a position that has no evidence or rational basis?
Correct, because atheism does not make any claims, therefore it does not need any evidence nor rationale to support its position, seeing as it is the default position. Rather, it is up to you, the person making the positive claim, and up to you to provide proof and evidence, because the burden of proof lies on you. Incidentally, I don't understand why you decided to mention this. If this was an attempt to discredit atheists, then I really don't see the point, because I have no shame in admitting that. My position as having a lack of belief in any god or gods does not need any sort of justification, in the same way that the disbelief in unicorns, UFOs, and flying spaghetti monsters does not need any proof or rationale to support it. Rather, it is the maker of the positive claim, aka the person who claims that UFOs, flying spaghetti monsters, and unicorns exist. It is up to this person to provide evidence and a rationale to support their claims, not the person who takes the position of disbelief.
If so, then isn't that simply faith?
How ignorant of you to say that this is faith, because you don't have faith to show that you don't believe in, oh, I don't know, those goddamn chocolate fairies flying around your house, now do you? You don't have faith to disbelieve in any other supernatural phenomena that you currently don't accept, do you, Stigma? It's not that I completely disbelieve in your God and I say that there's no way in hell that your God can exist. I am simply reserving judgment until I see sufficient evidence to push my verdict one way or the other. As it stands, the evidence shows that, well, it is highly improbable that any God exists, much less yours. So if you want to go play these word games, so be it, Steggy. But don't be afraid or don't be surprised if you're accused of dishonesty.
If you say that atheism is supported by lack of evidence for God, then it is only your opinion that there is no evidence. You cannot know all evidence for or against God. Therefore, you cannot say there is no evidence for God.
Correct. And in the same token, you don't know all the evidence that can support or go against the existence of your God and any other. Meaning that you're right back where you started.
If you say that atheism needs no evidence to support it because it is a position about the lack of something, then do you have other positions that you hold based upon lack of evidence, like, say, screaming blue ants?
What other positions of belief or disbelief, I might add, that an atheist, an agnostic, or anyone who is not atheist might hold is completely irrelevant.
How do you account for the laws of logic in a universe without God?
Well, then I'd have to ask you, how do you account for the laws of logic existing in the universe by adding the existence of a god or gods into a picture, except for the very simplistic explanation of, well, I don't know how it works and it looks really complicated, so I think God done it. The laws of logic would really be completely and utterly indistinguishable whether or not a god or gods did or did not exist.
The laws of logic are conceptual by nature and absolute. Being absolute, they transcend space and time. They are not the properties of the physical universe, since they are conceptual, or of people, since people contradict each other, which would mean that they weren't absolute. So how do you account for them?
Wrong. Logic is only a product of mankind, just a tool used to conceive rational conclusions about the reality that we observe. Logic is far from absolute. What I find to be a major roadblock in creationist thinking, with a lot of creationists, I find, is that they are obsessed with absolutes, as if they are just everywhere, and they're not. This world is full of uncertainty. The reality we observe is filled with uncertainties. And in fact, there's only one thing that each and every single one of us can vouch as an absolute, and that is our own existence, because of cogito ergo sum. Might I also add that my disbelief in your particular god or gods does not require me to take a position on the stance of the origin of logic or the epistemology of certain concepts.
Therefore, human thought, feelings, etc., are programmed responses to stimuli, and the atheist cannot legitimately claim to have meaning in life.
We can't? Because last I checked, I do have meaning in life, and last I checked, it wasn't up to a Christian to tell me what I do or do not think. Just a minor complaint, but I really hate it when creationists do this. First, you were going on about the origins of logic and whether or not they are absolute. Now you're going on to the origins of purpose and meaning, and you're trying to conflate the two things and muddle them together, as if they both had one source, which already to me shows that your thinking is already biased.
The universe exists. Is it eternal or did it have a beginning? It could not be eternal since that would mean that an infinite amount of time had to be crossed to get to the present. But you cannot cross an infinite amount of time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be infinite.
There are several theories going on about the origins of the universe, and yes, one of them happens to be that the universe has always been eternal. This, of course, would fit in perfectly with the laws of thermodynamics as well as the laws of conservation of mass and energy.
Something cannot bring itself into existence. Therefore, something brought it into existence. What brought the universe into existence? It would have to be a greater and be a sufficient cause to do it.
Oh, really? Because quite frankly, I still see the same problem here with infinite regression. If something brought something else into existence, then what brought that first thing into existence? And what brought that into existence? And what brought that into existence? See, I can just keep playing this game. Furthermore, how exactly does something which exists, let's just say your God, how does something which exists cause something that doesn't exist to begin existing? Not only is that logically incoherent, but you have absolutely no way of proving this completely abstract concept. So really, you're right back where you started. The only way you can make sense of this mess is special pleading. That my God, and only my God, mind you, is the only thing that does not fall under the problem of infinite regression. My God is the only thing that's eternal. And then I have to ask you, why can't the universe be eternal if your God is eternal? Because your God would face the same problem as the universe, meaning that your God cannot interact with given points in time if it was always eternal in time, meaning that it must exist in two temporal states. But your God cannot do that if it's eternal. Now, can it? Might I again add that atheists are not even required to take a position in regards to the origins of the universe because we just lack a belief in your particular god or gods. Why don't we stop playing this game, and why don't you just end it all by providing sufficient, unbiased, empirical evidence?
The Bible promotes this cause as God. What does atheism offer instead of God? If nothing, then atheism is not able to account for our own existence.
Ooh, he went there, atheists. We better do something about it. Oh, wait. What was that again? Right, we weren't required to take a position on that in the first place.
The universe cannot be infinitely old, or all usable energy would have been lost already.
Quick physics lesson. There are two types of energy, potential and kinetic. And the basic gist of it is that the universe, the world, the earth all have a neutral charge, which is to say, if there is energy input, then there must be an equal amount of energy output. And simply put, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only changed in form. This is the law of conservation of energy, one of the most fundamental basics of physics, which you obviously didn't learn.
If something cannot bring itself into existence, then God cannot exist, since something had to bring God into existence. You cannot have an infinite regression of causes lest an infinity be crossed, which cannot happen. Therefore, there must be a single uncaused cause.
Oh, where the hell have I heard this before? Sounds like William Lane Craig, Chad Elliott, and every single other douchebag that tries to put forth the Kalam cosmological. Great. Well, as I've already pointed out in previous videos, the problem with this uncreated creator is that's still not answering the problem of infinite regression. You're only putting it in different terms. First of all, what makes you so sure it's your God? Because, quite frankly, just about every single proponent of the Kalam that I've ever heard of was a Christian. What makes you so sure that it's the Judeo-Christian God that's this uncaused cause? If you're not sure, then you've already just made your position moot. And if you are, then I'd like to see some evidence to support why you're so sure. Secondly, even if I were to ignore that, the whole idea of an uncreated creator isn't answering the question. It's just making a case of special pleading, which is essentially you setting a bunch of rules for everyone else to follow while you don't follow the same rules yourself because you just want to have your cake and eat it too. And I'm sorry, you can't do that.
All things that came into existence were caused to exist.
No! Oh, that's my point all this time. It's that nothing ever really begins to exist. Because face it, where have you ever seen something begin to exist? Name me one thing that you have seen and observed begin to exist. Meaning ex nihilo. What begins to exist? Nothing. All it does, all anything does, all matter does, is change its structure from one form to another. Nothing can be created, nothing can be destroyed. Law of conservation of mass. Might I also add that just because something might seem intuitively true, that does not necessarily even remotely make it factually plausible, let alone provable.
And if the atheist says all of science has never found any evidence for God, that is a subjective statement. There are many scientists who affirm evidence for God's existence through science.
Can you please provide empirical evidence to show that all of your claims that you've made in the whole entire video have any sort of academic credibility? You know, like a peer-reviewed piece of scientific literature would be very nice. Because, of course, there are scientists who are Christians, and you'd think they'd come up with something to, support the existence of any god or gods that might exist. So, some peer-reviewed scientific literature would be nice. In the meantime, though, let me show you why this video is inherently dishonest, whether or not you intended it to be. First of all, you use the Kalam cosmological argument, and a very poor rehashing of it at that, and trust me, that really doesn't get you places. I've already refuted it a lot of times on my channel, and so have many atheists who are much more capable than I. And for just a fraction of the reasons outlined previously in my video, you will understand why I find the Kalam cosmological argument and any other variation of it to be an absolute joke. Number two, the whole idea that atheists must hold a position besides the lack of belief in a god is, in and of itself, Wrong. Therefore, all your premises based on the fact that atheists must hold an explanation for anything are in fact wrong. Finally, if anyone is making biased preconceptions
Your presupposition is that science has no evidence for God.
before looking at the evidence, it is you, all creationists who think like you, and anyone else, theist, atheist, or otherwise, who thinks like you. You know why? Because you look at a biased source, in this case, the Bible, you already form your biased preconceptions, and now you're trying to scramble for arguments to support them. That's not how things work. Not in academia, at least. The honest way to conduct yourself would be to find the evidence first, and then form conclusions. So, I really have to ask, you who overgeneralize all atheists, at least from what I've seen in this video, you who overgeneralize all atheists as making biased preconceptions, you have the nerve to accuse us of such a thing when you yourself are basing your arguments upon preconceived notions based on a biased source. That takes some nerve, Stig. Some nerve. So it's up to you what you want to do with this. Do what you will. I will post this as a video response to your video. If I don't see it posted as a video response, then I take it that as an answer that you don't want to engage in an intellectual conversation with me, and that's fine. I really couldn't care less. What I don't want to see, though, is drama. So keep that to yourself, please, if you will. Thanks for watching, and may the truth always be heard. Peace out.